PTC is go.
Copy, S is go.
Houston flight is go.
Malakoff.
STM is go.
Texacom is go.
STU is go.
LRD is go. SRO is go.
CDI is go.
Launch Director, NTD, our launch team is ready to proceed at this time.
Okay, I want to share some results imaging two different nebulae, the Bubble Nebula and the Monkey Nebula. The imaging camera I used here is the ZWO ASI 071 MC Pro. I ran it at -5 degrees for both imaging plans. I did this for my backyard, which is in a Bortle Class 6 area, so the filter used is the OPT Triad Ultra. It does mean longer exposures, so for guiding I use the Celestron off-axis guider with a ZWO ASI 224 MC. I use this camera both for planets and guiding. I know there are better spec cameras for guiding, but it's worked fine for me so far. The mount here is the Celestron CGX, and the OTA is the Celestron 9 1/4 Edge HD. I also use the Celestron 0.7 focal reducer, which not only gives a bigger field of view, but also a faster f-stop going from f10 to f7, so that's a nice bonus. Okay, on to acquisition. For planning and acquisition, I use Sequence Generator Pro, and for the Bubble Nebula, it was pretty straightforward. A single panel with the nebula right in the center of the framing. There are 11 subs at 600 seconds or 10 minutes each for a total of 1 hour and 50 minutes. I was trying to pick up as much good signal and detail as I could in each sub, though I think I ran a little short on total number of subs. Ran the darks for 10 minutes each as well and did 25 of those. I did create flats and biases as well. For the Monkey Head Nebula, I did a 2-panel mosaic. I could have fit it in one panel, but it would have been a little tight, and I want a little more room to work with. I also want to practice creating mosaics, and this is a good one to practice on. That's a 30% overlap on those panels. The subs are 300 seconds or 5 minutes each, and I ran 20 of those for each panel, which nets out to 3 hours and 20 minutes. This was all done in one night, and I got a little greedy at one point and tried to throw in NGC 1333, which is the Embryo Nebula. After a few failed attempts, I quickly abandoned and moved on. I couldn't seem to get a good plate solve. Didn't want to troubleshoot it in the middle of the night, so I'll save that for another day. I did run into a little hiccup during the Monkey Head Nebula. The auto meridian flip didn't work as I expected, so some of the images were not aligned, which will show up later in the integration step. Speaking of integration, I use APP or Astropixel Processor to register and integrate all the data. That includes all the lights, also known as subs, the darks, the flats, and the bias data. I'm not going to go through all the tabs, but I will note that the HA03 color algorithm is specifically meant for multi-band, narrow-band filters like the Triad Ultra. While it's possible to split out the HA03 in luminance, I didn't do that here. I just used the color algorithm. For the Monkey Head Nebula, you can clearly see my images didn't all align as I intended. If I overstretch it, you can easily see all the edges. I suspect this was largely due to the mishap with the meridian flip. That or maybe my polar alignment was off. It's not a big deal though, because APP does a great job making sense of it all and aligned it just fine. As far as post-processing goes, I do use APP to calibrate background and star colors, run HSL selective color, and do an initial stretch. After that, I take it into Photoshop for more selective and final processing. I won't go through each Photoshop technique in detail, but I do use all the common techniques like levels and curves, stretching, filters like Camera Raw, HLVG, and High Pass. I'll also use Astro Actions or concentrate certain edits using selective colors or maybe specific RGB color channel edits. There's just so many ways to tackle post-processing, and my workflow changes depending on the actual image. Okay, now the results. Here's my final image of the Bubble Nebula, also known as NGC 7635. The bubble is found in constellation Cassiopeia and was discovered by William Herschel in 1787. It's an emission-based nebula, which basically means the light is sourced locally. It's emitting its own light as opposed to reflecting it from some other external source. If I understand correctly, the bubble formed around 300,000 years ago from a massive star with a radius that is 15 times greater than our sun and upwards to 400,000 times more luminous. The bubble is about 10 light years across, and if you're up for an intergalactic space flight to visit it, you better pack a lunch because it will take you a good 7,100 to 11,000 light years to get there. Alright, NGC 2174, the Monkey Head Nebula. another emission-based nebula, but this one is located in the constellation Orion, and it's about 6,400 light years from my backyard. This was the first time I ever imaged this target, and at first I couldn't recognize the monkey head in the image until I rotated the view. I don't know if it's the original perspective, but I clearly see the profile of a monkey's head. The forehead or brow, the eye, nose, mouth, and maybe a furry chin that is being scratched by the monkey's hand. Maybe there is another way to view it, but that's how I visualize it. Here's a fun fact. One might think that the Monkey Head Nebula is a really tiny object to view simply because it's so far away, 6,400 light years away, right? But the reality is it actually covers more area in the night sky than the moon does. That's an indicator of how big it is. Okay, that's all I got for now, so I'll wrap this up. Overall, it was a really good night, even with some clouds rolling through. I will say that I'm still learning how to best image the night sky, so comments and feedback are welcome. And thanks very much for watching.